This hour is brought to you by Sweetland Waste and Removal Service, a homegrown company serving Southern Indiana since 1995.
Well, we're coming to your city. Gonna play our guitars and sing you a country song. We'll all be flying higher than a jetliner. And if you want a little bang in your yin-yang, come along.
And hello, everybody, and welcome to Indiana Sports Beat. Of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Jim Coyle with you as always. Jake at the wheel, keeping us on track. Hope your week's going well. We've got another great show on tap for you today. Kevin Brockway, IU beat writer for CNHI Papers, will join us, as is Scotty Agness from The Athletic. We'll talk to both of those gentlemen each week, each Thursday. Been a slow week, but all of a sudden, late yesterday, news comes down that the NCAA is ready to move forward and that some schools can be expecting to get notice of violations stemming from the FBI corruption trial. Specifically, 6 college basketball programs involved in the FBI's investigation into the sport will be hearing from the NCAA about alleged violations this summer. NCAA Vice President Stan Wilcox didn't name the schools when he talked to CBS Sports on Wednesday, but he said that the Southern District of New York's legal cases would be a good starting point for who will be targeted regarding potential eligibility violations. Specifically, he had said, I would just say that it's clear when you look at the number of cases that were listed by the Southern District of New York, those numbers are more than likely to be reflected in the number of cases that are going to be moving forward, said Wilcox, a former Florida State athletic director and Notre Dame basketball player. Of course, back in October, 3 men were found guilty. Former Adidas executive James Gatto, a former Adidas consultant Merle Code, and basketball middleman Christian Dawkins were all found guilty of wire fraud and conspiracy to commit wire fraud in October after the federal trial. The main charges in that case stem from a $100,000 payment to the family of Louisville recruit Brian Bowen, while Gatto was also found guilty on a charge relating to the University of Kansas. So, who are these schools? Obviously, Louisville, Kansas, LSU, USC, Auburn, and Arizona could be among the 6 schools. Now, with Arizona, of course, you've got Sean Miller, brother to Archie Miller, Indiana's coach. And LSU, you've got Trendon Watford, who not too long ago committed to LSU, which I brought this up on plenty of other occasions and talked about this. I'm just shocked that even in this day and age, that everything that had gone on prior, everything that was known about LSU, everything that was known about this coach, that anybody would commit to play there, especially in the next year or two, because it was obvious things were going to go bad. And I went on to say that I can't believe any parent would allow their kid to commit to this school. And I got called out by somebody saying that I said things I didn't say, actually, about them. I was just saying, in general, I can't believe any family would allow their kid to go there. And now, what happens when LSU gets investigated? As we all expected, at least I certainly expected, what happens when Will Wade gets suspended again after being suspended once and having to be reinstated because the school just didn't have anything to suspend him on, because they don't have what the NCAA has, or more importantly, what the FBI has. They don't have that information. They may know it, but they don't have it. But we know it's there. We know he's on the FBI wiretap. We know it's coming, and here it is. So again, I have to ask the question, why? Why would anybody go to LSU? Why would you commit to a school that you know good and damn well is barely treading water with the NCAA? Doesn't matter, I guess, but it just boggles my mind, especially when you're a recruit at the top level. You're a 5-star. Why are you going to screw with that? You put all this time into the recruiting process, and that's what happens? Well, we'll see. But it's going to be interesting to see what the fallout actually is on this, because you're talking some major programs here. Now, Louisville, the thing a lot of people outside of the Louisville area forget, Louisville is going to get hammered. I think Louisville is going to absolutely get hammered because they were already on probation when they committed these violations. They were on probation for the stripper gate when they committed these violations. So it's really not good when you commit level 1 infractions, but it's really not good when you do it while you're on probation for committing level 1 infractions. They could be expecting some trouble there for certain. Then you've got a program like Kansas, who's been on top of college basketball for years. But man, are they taking a hit. Is it a coincidence that their run of Big 12 conference championships came to a close last year while the FBI investigation came to light? Hello? Then you've got Auburn. Bruce Pearl. And Bruce Pearl's not been named in any of this, but he's the coach at Auburn. He's already seen his share of NCAA troubles when he was at Tennessee. He lied. Not good. But just the fact that he's a part of this, not a good look for Auburn. You got two big-time SEC schools, Auburn and LSU, that are in trouble. And these are just the 6 that we know about. That's probably because basically we're dealing with the NCAA, and they're only going to have what somebody else gives to them, i.e. the FBI. Whatever the FBI has to give to them, that's what they'll have. Because they can't get anything else. They've shown it time and time again. They're inept when it comes to doing whatever it takes to get the information needed, i.e. North Carolina escaping on 17 years of academic fraud. So, if it weren't for the FBI, nobody would be getting in any trouble. You can see from the sheer fact that LSU suspended Will Wade because of him making quote-unquote strong-ass offers to recruits. But they didn't have that information in hand, as I talked about earlier. So they had to rescind that suspension. Now, he did say that he wished he would have talked to him, that he blah, blah, blah. Well, that's what his attorney told him to do. It's what Rick Pitino told Louisville to do. It's what North Carolina did. That's why North Carolina escaped persecution by the NCAA after 17 years of academic fraud. They got away with it because they fought it. They got rid of people who had worked there. The NCAA has no subpoena power, so they can't compel people to testify that don't work for the universities or are no longer involved. So North Carolina got away with it. Rick Pitino told Louisville, you need to fight this. What did Louisville do? They fell on the sword, man. They gave themselves a postseason ban. I bet you they're going to end up regretting that. It cost Rick Pitino his job and virtually everybody in the athletic department there. They had Tom Juritz, their athletic director, some assistant coaches, the entire basketball program. But, excuse me, Chris Mack has come in and has them ready to rebound quite nicely. No pun intended. But that's until the NCAA steps up. That could change things. It's going to be interesting to how this plays out. Is there anybody else, or is it just what the FBI has talked about? That's going to be my guess, because, like I said, the NCAA is not very good at doing much of anything, especially investigations. So the NCAA is going to hand out some punishment strictly off of information gotten by the FBI, and then they'll ride off into the sunset like they've done something. They've changed a bunch of recruiting rules, but I don't know that that's done a daggone thing to change what the problem was. We'll certainly find out, but it's going to take a long time to find out. It's going to take years. Now, if it's not the right thing and it's causing harm to players, potential recruits, well, you got, 3, 4, 5 years of dealing with it to find out if it's going in the right direction. You forget you're dealing with the NCAA. They don't exactly have a great track record on doing innovative, forward-thinking things. But we'll certainly find out. We'll see what's going to happen now. It's the ball's in their court. But, of course, it's been handed to them, basically. My gosh. They got guys on wiretaps. We don't even know what all they have. You've got coaches testifying against what would be other coaches. Surely to goodness, heads are going to roll. There's going to be at least 2 head coaches lose their job out of this, I would say. There's already been one in Rick Pitino. I don't see how, unless we have been misled and he is just scot-free, innocent. I'm not saying he is or isn't, because I have no dog in that fight. But Sean Miller at Arizona, it's not looking good for him from what we're hearing. The testimony that's been given by multiple people claiming that he not only knew of, but was a part of making payments to players. We have to wait to see what the actual evidence is. But as it stands right now, it does not look good for him. Will Wade. That's going to be a tricky situation. The NCAA is going to have to prove what a strong-ass offer meant. Because that's been the biggest problem, to my knowledge, to this date, is there was ever no mention of money. Just strong-ass offer. Strong-ass. Now, this was made to other people, and this is where the NCAA goes awry. They can't compel these people to testify. Hey, we'll talk about this a lot more with Kevin Brockway on today, CNHI's IU beat writer. Kevin's on, along with Scott Agness. We've got plenty to get to. Thanks a lot for joining us here on Indiana Sports Beat, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. When we come back, we'll talk to Scott Agness from The Athletic. Stay tuned. We're back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the Golf Club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The Golf Club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is A.J. Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day, or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become one in a million.
This is former Indiana basketball player Brian Evans, and you're listening to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle.
Today's guest is brought to you by Reynolds Family Dentistry of Sellersburg. You need $1 million smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you'll get with Reynolds Family Dentistry. Welcome back to Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle, of course, coming to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. And as always, here on Thursdays, we get the opportunity to talk to our good friend Scott Agness. Scott, how's it going, man?
Good morning. Good to talk with you.
Not a lot going on today, man. It's that time of the summer where it's kind of in between everything. There's camps going on. You got the end of the NBA going on. The All-Star games just ended. Indy 500's over. It's kind of that lull time of the season.
Yeah, but I'm not quite ready just yet to look past the NBA Finals. I'm hoping that one goes 7 games. I want the action to continue through the weekend. I think that would be special.
Well, you know, it looking a very good opportunity that it will now with Golden State pulling out a big win on the road the other night, a game that they controlled most of the night. Then all of a sudden, Toronto makes this run. It looks like they're in charge now and that they're going to wrap up the series. All of a sudden, Golden State said, yeah, not so fast. And that's on the heels, no pun intended, of Kevin Durant going down with a terrible Achilles injury.
It was, man. And I was surprised at 2 things. One, how effective he was early on in the game. Scored a quick 11 points. But at the same time, I was a little bit surprised how much the Warriors played him. I thought they might use him in bursts, right? 4-minute bursts or 6-minute bursts. But I think he came out after 4 minutes and then went back in for like another 8-minute stint. And that's when the injury occurred. And I'm not one. I don't think anyone necessarily deserves blame because there's so many minds and conversations that are had before someone of this significance, probably the best active player in the playoffs because LeBron was out, the best player, and probably who's going to end up being a top 10, top 15 player all time. You're going to have those significant conversations with his agent, with his doctor, with team doctors, with team trainers, with coaches. Remember, Steve Kerr, he played in this league. He knows what it's like playing through injuries, and certainly he wasn't that level of player, but he knows to an extent of what Durant and other players are dealing with. So it's something I don't take lightly, and I don't think they took lightly. I think that's somewhat cultured today, Jim, where somebody must be blamed, where in turn a guy playing basketball who loves basketball tried to help his team. He did, but suffered the consequences of forcing it.
Well, of course, somebody always has to be the blame nowadays, unfortunately, in this era that we live in. And speaking of Toronto, they look to have that series wrapped up. OG Anunoby has been cleared to play, but it doesn't look like he's going to get to. It looks like they've kind of got him shut down.
Yeah, to me, this is a situation, right, that he's been out for quite a while now. He had to have that emergency appendectomy. Then there was an infection that made it worse. And I think they realized at this point a young player without much playoff experience, while he could help him if he was healthy throughout, just throwing him into the middle of this series, a critical series, they clearly have read that situation and say he's not quite ready, both maybe for the capacity of the situation or maybe in terms of health and in terms of his shape and being.
We talked about the injury to Kevin Durant, and you look at what they have done, and they're already in their legacy. If they were to come back and win this series with Kevin Durant on the shelf, where does that put them in the hierarchy of great teams?
Man, it'd be awfully special, wouldn't it? I mean, if they would be able to come back and complete this. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me just because they do have two of the best players of all time in Steph Curry also and Klay Thompson. But, I mean, Kawhi has been a beast in this postseason, and the Raptors, I give Nick Nurse a lot of credit in the team, the way they play team basketball and defend and have been able to do things. It would be an incredible feat for this Warriors team, and we just saw it a couple years ago, right? They got up 3-1, and the Cavaliers, with a weakened team, though they did have, of course, LeBron, Kyrie, Kevin Love, they were able to storm back. So it's not out of the realm of possibility, but these are slim chances here. And they do get the next one, though, in fairness, in their home building tonight.
Yeah, if they're able to do this, to come back and win this series, man, they got to go down as one of the greatest runs in championship era history. I mean, they've already got a couple under their belt. They've had a couple that they didn't win or one that they didn't win. But yet, to do it in this fashion, this would be spectacular.
I think they're already a dynasty in my mind. The fact that they've continued to be in the NBA Finals all these years, they took LeBron's Miami teams, Cleveland, and now a different opponent with Toronto. I don't know how that you wouldn't classify them onto it, and that's why for me, I'm rooting for the story. And I think the story would be Golden State comes back, Golden State continues their magnificent run, they win in their final game in Oracle Arena tonight, they win the series. And then they open up a brand new arena across the bay in San Francisco next year and try to keep it on, continue it on. And does Durant want back for that opportunity, or does he go elsewhere and try to mind his own route?
We'll certainly find out. That soap opera continues to play out. Also, right now, the College World Series is set to begin this weekend. Michigan, surprising out of the Big Ten, doesn't win the regular season title. They lose that to Indiana. They don't win the tournament. Ohio State is able to come out with that, but they're the only Big Ten team that's managed to make it to the College World Series, and they do it in dramatic fashion, knocking off UCLA, the national #1 seed, to get there.
No, that's impressive. I'll be honest. I've been wrapped up in basketball. I haven't been able to catch any of it lately, but I'll give that program a lot of credit. And we talked about it in the past. We've been able to see its growth all the way from Sembauer Field to where it is today, to the point where they are in the regular conversation every single year. Best Big Ten team, and they continue to mine recruits out of all different kinds of places.
We'll follow that as it goes along. And also the Women's Cup, World Cup is underway right now. The women's national team had a match, which they scored 13 goals, which most you would think would be high praise. But they're catching some grief over that, Scott.
Yeah, and I think this, Jim, goes back to the conversation. Somebody wants to blame somebody at all costs. I mean, this is a situation, right, where goals matter as they continue on through this tournament, right? And so every goal could be used as a tiebreaker or whatnot. As long as that's currently the qualification and used and under consideration, you can't let off the reins and just pass the ball around on the pitch and everything. You have to continue playing. At what point it goes back to the old conversation, if you don't like it, stop them, right? Like, do something about it. Maybe you shove them. Maybe you pick up a yellow card. Maybe you try to disrupt them. And I'm talking about the opposing team, of course. You got to do something to disrupt them. There was times the other day where they scored, I think, 3 goals in 5 actual minutes, not game minutes. There's something wrong about your team if you can't get a team to not punch one through the goal in that short of time. For us, though, I would certainly say it was fun to watch. You don't often see these high-scoring matches. You don't see a feat like Alex Morgan scoring 5 goals in one game. So often you rarely get 5 goals in a game by a team or the teams combined. So I like the action, I like the scoring, and I like how this U.S. women's national team advanced because they've always been fun to watch. I've watched them closely since the World Cup back in '99.
And the women's team has a chip on their shoulder. They don't get paid as much as the men, but yet they get more attention. They don't get paid as much as the men, yet they have more success. And with good reason, they have a chip on their shoulder. They have been a team that has drawn a ton of attention to women's soccer and soccer in general in the United States. So they deserve everything that they get. They've done nothing but good things. They've won, and they're doing it from a women's standpoint. Something I learned from the women's soccer coach in Indiana, that the United States is so far ahead of the rest of the world in women's soccer because obviously women's rights matter more in the United States than it does in a lot of other countries. But that has certainly helped them in that regard. But the United States is definitely one of the best women's programs in all of soccer.
I think this program continues to find and develop some models and icons for young women, girls, trying to not only aspire to success in a sport, but just to be great human beings. You see them speak out for certain issues, to speak out for women, speak out for themselves, and that's an important thing that they feel empowered to do. And so not only, sure, they're having a success on the field, they're fun to watch, but I think year after year they put together a group that you can be proud of. I mean, the only thing that off the top of my mind I can think of is, remember you had Hope Solo, the goalkeeper, have a few domestic issues. But outside of that, this has really been a strong group.
Absolutely, and they've, like you said, they've been a great role model for women. I know my daughter is a soccer player, and they always look up to those girls. And it's great that they have that success, and they should get paid as much as the guys, by the way, because they've done a hell of a job. They've won a lot.
The challenge in all of that, and I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but let's take it to basketball standpoint. Certainly they're playing games. They're doing those sorts of similar things, the same exact game, but the audience isn't quite there. I would venture to guess this women's national team's audience is pretty strong, but that's the one big difference in terms of NBA and WNBA and why you can't pay them the same, is that the sponsorship dollars, the TV dollars, those aren't even close to being equal. And so what you can pay them, you can only afford to pay them in part what the league is bringing in. Now, what, for example, the WNBA needs to argue for is to get a bigger percentage of the pie. And so the NBA, you got anywhere from 49 to 51% that's split up, and I think WNBA is nearing more 30%. Now, that's certainly not right, and something you'd like to be corrected here in a new collective bargaining agreement because, not only are you playing the same sport, but I think a lot of it, though, does come down to, Jim, the money you bring in as individuals and then as a team in a league.
Right, and that makes complete sense when it comes down to bringing money in. But I think from the soccer standpoint, the women's team draws, like you said, their audience is pretty strong, at least stateside.
And what's great about that is it's something we can all rally behind, right? Like everyone here is rooting on the United States. It's not like you're going against, you're not rooting for another team in another state or whatever. That's the one thing I will say I really love about the Olympics is it feels like we're all in it together.
Yeah, and they don't have to worry about any competition anywhere close. They got to go outside the country to get stuff.
Well, sure, that too. Yes.
Speaking of women, a nice little segue here. The Cleveland Cavaliers hired California head coach Lindsey Gottlieb as an assistant coach.
Yeah, fascinating here. I think we're seeing more and more women feel like they are welcome in that league, and teams are thinking outside the box, saying, look, basketball is basketball. Let's just find those that know the game well, can teach it well, can relate with players, because that's also very important. You can know the game but have no people skills. That doesn't work. And so they're mining here for the first time the women's college basketball circuit here, and she's been one of the top programs in the Pac-12 for like the last decade, really. It's the wife of Doug Gottlieb, who we know in the media, of course. But she was a successful player, now been a successful coach. We want to bring it back local. One individual I would love to see coach on an assistant role, and NBA would be one of our own in Indiana, and Stephanie White. She's coached at Vanderbilt currently. She led the WNBA's Indiana Fever to the WNBA Finals. I think she's one that would be excellent, and I could see someone like Brad Stevens, for example, bringing her on his staff. I know they have a great relationship. But I think, Jim, this is a situation where no longer is that door closed, and no longer are individuals pigeonholed towards their gender or their sport, right? And so we're seeing an opportunity for so many people. We've seen some. Nancy Lieberman before, Becky Hammon as an assistant with the Spurs as she continues to rise her way up from behind the bench to now an assistant coach at the front of the bench to perhaps she'll take over for Greg Popovich. That's what a lot of people in the league circles believe might happen with the Spurs here in a few years. Is Becky Hammon potentially could be the first woman, to be the first head coach in the NBA, and that would also be a significant change. But I think what we're seeing in Cleveland, Jim, is not only did they try to think outside the box and go into the college ranks for their head coach, they did the same thing for an assistant coach, and they brought in as an associate head coach someone with head coaching experience. So I think it'll be fascinating to watch the staff come together, a group that has not worked with each other before, but they all have high-level coaching experience and coaching wins.
It will certainly be something to follow, a story to follow. You can tell that we're searching for content because now we're going to talk about Curtis Jones, who's a former Indiana player who transferred out. He went to Oklahoma State, stayed there for a while. Now he's off to Penn State. He's back to the Big Ten. This is like his third Power 5 school.
Yeah, and after the second transfer, you begin to wonder about the individual and perhaps, Jim, those that he listens to or takes guidance from. I think there's something – it's hard to know, obviously, the specifics of everyone's situation, right? But I think something that we have to take into consideration is an individual not finishing what they started and committing to something maybe that was a bad fit in the first place. And maybe he did warrant one transfer. But then you better get it right with that second school, whether it's the coach you connect with or the school or the conference. You need to find what's best for you, and so far he's been 0 for 2. I hope it works out, but these are the teaching points and the lessons that those that come after him have to realize. I mean, I consider a guy like Dylan Windler, who's probably going to be an early second-round pick here in the NBA, an outstanding shooter, played here locally in central Indiana, and he went down to Belmont, starred down there. Small school, but guess what? It was a great fit. It allowed him to showcase his skills, and now he's on the verge of perhaps being drafted in the NBA, despite not being, a top conference or at a top school, because it's all about fit. And that goes for every individual. I mean, if you're talking about the NBA draft coming up here in a week or two, that's what you're all about. If you're in NBA free agency, you want to sign, sure, you want the best money, but you also want the best situation where you have a chance to win. And I think sometimes that gets lost in that conversation.
Well, that's right. The draft happens before we talk next, so we're looking forward to that coming up. We'll see which direction the Pacers are going to go after having all these workouts. We'll see where Romeo Langford ends up. That's the big question on everybody's mind. Is he going to drop? Is he going to stay up? Where is he going to go? A lot of questions will be answered in less than a week.
Yeah, next Thursday we'll be talking about it as the draft goes down at Barclays Center. And Romeo, as I said, has that cast off. I'll be curious where he falls. I still believe he's a lottery team. I expect him to be in the green room in New York, which suggests by the NBA that you're going to be a lottery pick. It's just a matter of where.
We'll certainly find out. What do you got working on on the Athletic, Scott? Yeah,
just previewing NBA draft coverage here coming up. Hope to have an article with Ryan Carr, the guy that runs the draft and free agency really for the Pacers in terms of the scouting department. And then I'll also take a look at all the different players the Pacers brought in, where there have been success with the number 18 pick, where, of course, they've drafted in the past, and possible ideas that Kevin Pritchard maybe could use for himself, right?
Absolutely. Well, you can find him at Scott Agness on Twitter or at The Athletic. Scott, I appreciate you, man. Can't thank you enough for coming on each week.
Happy to be on. Thank you, Jim.
You bet. Scott Agness from The Athletic. We've got more coming up to you from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. Indiana Sports Beat back with more right after this. Hello, everybody. Jim Coyle from Indiana Sports Beat. When I'm not covering the Hoosiers, you can find me at Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, located on the northeast corner of I-65 at Veterans Parkway. Bubba's 33 has hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer from a select list of local craft brewers. An incredible food selection, all made fresh daily. Whether you're meeting the team for that post-win meal in the family dining area or meeting friends for happy hour to watch the game on one of Bubba's 50 TVs. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville. Pizza, burgers, beer.
We all want a winning smile for those championship photos, and that's exactly what you will get at Reynolds Family Dentistry in Sellersburg. Reynolds Family Dentistry has been serving the dental needs of Hoosier families for over 30 years. Let Doctors Roger and Jay Reynolds take care of your family. Just off of I-65 at 809 South Indiana Avenue in Sellersburg. Call 812-246-3368. That's Reynolds Family Dentistry, 812-246-3368.
Now that warm weather has arrived, it's time to hit the links, and there's no better place than the golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington. Voted best golf course by the readers of the Bloomington Herald-Times, the golf club at Eagle Point is under new ownership, has new fairways and bunkers, and it's open to the public. When the round's over, there's cold beer and a full menu at the Eagle Point Pub and Bistro. Call 812-824-1100 to make a tee time. That's 812-824-1100. The golf club at Eagle Point in Bloomington.
This is AJ Moye.
This is Dan Dockett.
Hey, this is Michael Lord, former Indiana basketball player.
This is Indiana football coach Tom Allen.
This is Jim Coyle with the Indiana Sports Beat. You can always like and follow us on Facebook. Always follow the show rebroadcast on iTunes, Google Play, iHeartRadio, Spotify. TheDailyHoosier.com is a great place to sign up for each and every day. Or, of course, on 97.7 The Ref in Evansville. For the best recycling and waste removal service, turn to the area's leader, Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling, a homegrown company serving southern Indiana since 1995. Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling serves Floyd, Clark, Harrison, and Washington counties. For excellent service and peace of mind, call Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling today at 812-944-5642. That's 812-944-5642. Keep life sweet with Sweetland Waste Removal and Recycling.
All across the country, people are coming together to speed up what we can learn about health. The All of Us Research Program is calling on 1 million people to join us as we try to change the future of health. For your family, for future generations, for all of us. Visit joinallofus.org and find out how you can become 1 in a million.
Today's guest is brought to you by Bubba's 33 in Clarksville, with hand-tossed pizzas, bold burgers, and ice-cold beer. Pizza, burgers, beer. Bubba's 33 in Clarksville.
Oh, smokestack lightning, shining just like gold.
Welcome back to the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios, Indiana Sports Beat with Jim Coyle with you as always. And now we're joined by our good friend Kevin Brockway from CNHI Papers. Kevin, how are you, man?
I'm doing well. The beautiful Golf Point Studios, which I have seen, very nice studios.
That's right, baby. And right at the plush Golf Club at Eagle Point golf course. Very nice. But hey, just want to talk about not a lot going on. We get to that summertime where there's not a lot happening and you're digging around for stuff. Boom! The NCAA drops right in our lap like manna from heaven. We've been wondering with all this FBI investigation stuff, Kevin. We've been hearing about this and that, and this guy's on a wiretap, but nothing was happening. But now all of a sudden, late yesterday, the NCAA comes out and says, "Look out! Here's some 6 schools or whatever that could be expecting to feel the hammer sometime soon." And these are some big time schools.
Oh, no question. Yeah, no, 6. Level 1 violations. There's some big time violations too that they're going to get notice of allegations about. So certainly, based on the testimony and the history, you'd have to think Arizona's going to be involved, Auburn, certainly for sure, Louisville, and perhaps Kansas. So yeah, you're talking about some big programs, some programs that have had success at Auburn going to a Final Four this past year, and I know they have a lot of high hopes for this upcoming season. So this is something that's gonna, could get ugly pretty quick.
I mean, we could go through each and every one of these because you talk about Auburn. Well, what does that say about Auburn when you've got Bruce Pearl there, who's already had his run-ins with the NCAA?
Yeah, and Bruce's history in Tennessee was a little bit, the cookout thing. Yeah, he did lie. It wasn't a major deal. It was a deal, and it was something that certainly, a lot of it had to do with the recruitment of Aaron Kraft, and there were a lot of people kind of rumbling that thought that Thad Matta was kind of involved behind the scenes there. But this is, when you're talking about Chuck Person, and major money being exchanged, I think that's a little bit of a bigger deal. And I think certainly Bruce is going to see the weight of it because, the head coach is you're responsible for your assistants, like it or not, you're responsible for the people that you hire. And I think this is going to be a situation where, Bruce is going to have to answer for it, and the school is going to have to answer for it. The athletic leadership is going to have to answer for it. And as we have seen to this point, that there are a lot of schools that have circled the wagons on this. And once these level 1 violations, these notice of allegations come out, it's going to be pretty interesting to see if they still circle the wagons or if they start to clean house in some of these basketball staffs.
Yeah, you talk about the head coach being responsible. That leads us to Louisville, and which is what pretty much cost Rick Pitino his job. He has not really been named in anything, but yet his assistant was involved in the stripper gate that happened back a few years ago. His assistants were involved in this. There's one that's caught on a wiretap. Still rumblings that he knew, he didn't know. Nothing has shown anything that he did. But what it was is that it was his assistants, and he's responsible for that program, and they got rid of him pretty much for those grounds.
Yeah, and I think Rick had a lot more baggage, but I think that's the proactive thing that you got to do if you're in administration. And a lot of these, a lot of other coaches throughout college basketball are really complaining and wondering why these athletic directors and these school presidents haven't acted with regards to, when the scandal came out. And, a lot of rumblings right now that's an unlevel playing field. And maybe this situation will certainly change that. And if, these allegations come out and punishments come, maybe it'll show that the NCAA really means business. So we'll see, certainly by July, apparently the reports are is when the level 1, the notice of allegations will come out. We'll see what programs are effective and if the NCAA really means business. But it's certainly, if you're one of those coaches that does it the right way, it's certainly an encouraging sign.
You mean like Will Wade making strong-ass offers? I mean, that's a school that's a school that's definitely got to be on this list is LSU.
I followed the SEC a long time. Oh, of course, yeah, and LSU and Auburn. You're talking about 2 SEC programs that are involved. And listen, the SEC they did an informal poll. CBS Sports did about kind of an anonymous poll about the dirtiest conference in college basketball, and the SEC came out well in front. And when you have 2 schools that are directly involved in the conference, it's not a very good look for the conference.
And when you talk about the SEC overall as a conference, you look at schools. You got to go back to like '89, but Kentucky gets hammered in basketball. Bruce Pearl in Tennessee got hammered in basketball. Now Auburn, now LSU. You can look at football side of things. Things have happened, and there's other places that have done things as well. But it's just funny how over the last few years the SEC has been down, really down, and all of a sudden they're up, but right at the same time comes this FBI investigation. Maybe there's a coincidence. It's no coincidence that the reason the SEC has improved so much as a conference is also they're in more trouble than any other conference right now.
Well, college sports is big business everywhere, but I can tell you from being down there in the SEC, they have that slogan, it just means more, and it really does down there because, you don't really have any pro sports teams. I mean, in a lot of those states, a lot of those markets. So, I mean, really, college sports is what you have, and they really pour a lot of resources into it, and some of them are legitimate resources, and as we're finding out, some of them are illegitimate resources.
And then you got to look at things like Trendon Watford, who committed to LSU, but that's something that was a point of contention for me way back before he even committed to them. Anybody that would commit to LSU to me was sticking their head in the sand. I was like, how can any player or especially any parent allow their kid to go to a school like this where you know something's going to be happening? There's no doubt. I mean, they've got the head coach on a wiretap, my God, an FBI wiretap. So you know something's going to be coming. But now he's got to look at his future. Is he looking at potentially going elsewhere if something pops up? I mean, I know you can't predict that, but I mean that's something that they should have known was that was probably coming, and that could really kind of screw up his college deal.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm sure we'll wait, and I'm sure the LSU staff told it. Hey, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be fine. And we'll see if that's true. But they certainly did a sell job on Trendon Watford, and whether. They were probably, whether Trendon and his family might have been naive in the process with regards to that, and maybe were told things that they wanted to hear, but that weren't necessarily true. I mean, we'll see, but it could be, if the hammer does come down on LSU, it could be somewhat damaging and disappointing to Trendon Watford's future in terms of playing, college basketball or playing for the postseason. But, maybe he's fine with that. You don't know what his, maybe the bigger motivation is, to go to the NBA, but certainly it doesn't look very promising right now in Baton Rouge in terms of their situation.
And then, of course, Kansas is a program that has been at the top of college basketball for a long, long time, and we'll see if the NCAA and how far they're willing to go in this, because we talked about the Kansases and the Dukes and all these big-time programs, these blue bloods, if you will, on whether or not the NCAA had enough credibility to go after a program like that. We'll find out, I guess.
Yeah, well, if you remember back in 1998 when Larry Brown won the national title the next year, they got Kansas pretty hard, and they got Kansas on probation. So I think the history has shown that they will if the evidence is overwhelming. It seems like Duke is kind of the maybe one sacred cow that's untouchable. And then UNC, of course, I
was going to say North Carolina.
Yeah, they fought the NCAA and they won over the academic situation, which was a little bit more murkier. It didn't involve, cash exchanging hands for recruits. It more had to do with keeping kids eligible. But, with regards to certainly, Kansas, they have been hit hard before, and Kentucky's been hit hard before as well. So they have gone after some of the blue bloods, just maybe not all.
Well, we'll certainly find out. It's camping season, and a lot of team camps going on right now, especially IU basketball. Last week they had Trey Kaufman in, Silver Creek amongst other teams, and an offer ended up going to him over that. A lot more guys coming in this weekend, a lot more teams coming in this weekend. And Anthony Leal, who already holds an offer from IU, will be coming into camp this weekend. But he's just one of many. Christian Lander, Luke Goody, Jaden Brewer, Pierce Thomas. There's a lot of guys that are going to be playing ball on the IU campus this weekend.
Yeah, and those camps are really good just to kind of evaluate guys, to get a look at them, to get a close-up look at them. They're very valuable. And I know over the years when I used to cover Florida, and they had team camps, Torian Green was a guy that was developed in a team camp. So you can get an eye on a guy for a long period of time, and I'm sure they've done that with guys like Leal and others that have come up through the ranks, and really looking forward to seeing this weekend and seeing some of those teams and what they can do. Certainly in front of in that IU environment, in front of Archie, in front of the staff, and I'm sure that they'll have a good time there as well.
Everybody makes a deal out of these visits and all that, but to me, these camps, they're as good as anything as far as recruiting goes. You spend a ton of time in and around the facilities, actually using the facilities. So that's as good a recruiting tool as anything in my mind.
Oh, yeah, no question. And I think it's just that, having that intimacy and being around and, being able to play games, in the gym and assembly hall, in the practice facilities, being around the staff, being around, there's a lot that you can glean and you can gain from a player watching them in that environment as well. I think it really goes both ways in terms of an evaluation process. You can really, now they're not going up against the best of the best per se, but they are going up against pretty good high school competition within the state. So I think it's a good measuring stick, and those camps can be very useful. You can find hidden gems there as well, guys that aren't necessarily on the AU circuit and nationally ranked. Sometimes you can find those guys that are under the radar guys that can be a really good fit for your team.
That used to happen a lot back in the day, but now in the advent of social media, does that hardly ever happen anymore? Is the unknown guy really happen anymore?
Well, I think it's a great risk now because of the fact that you have these lists and stuff, and you would probably have this uproar of fans saying, "Why are you going after this guy? He's not even on the rankings, or he's 400." But I think the coaches that kind of have courage in their convictions and that kind of know the guys that are going to fit their program. Listen, we've seen it all the time. Loyola Chicago got to the Final Four a couple of years ago with a bunch of 2-stars. How do you explain that? How do you explain UCF in football? It's the same thing. There is something to be said for having a guy that fits your culture, guys that are going to stay for 4 years, that are going to develop. Now, do you need talent? Yeah, and talent makes everyone around you better, too, in practice. You do need those talented guys sprinkled in. But the developmental aspect of it is vastly underrated in college sports, and the fact that you have to get a guy, you get a core group of players that develop over time, you're going to be successful. And sometimes those culture guys and those guys that fit your program are definitely worth their weight in gold.
We just saw the Kentucky-Indiana All-Star Series come to a close. On the senior side, it wasn't really a game as Indiana just destroyed Kentucky in both of those games, winning by 30 points and close to 40 points in the second game. And Indiana has won 28 out of the last 32 games in that series. They hold a commanding 99-44 lead. There's a lot of people that wonder, is it worth even continuing that? Indiana has gotten so dominant in that series that a lot of people wonder if that series should even continue.
Yeah, and you got to wonder, too, about, Kentucky seemed a little more disorganized than Indiana did. That was kind of my take on it. And some of it's coaching, but I think a lot of it's talent. And I think it says a lot about, this is my first time being exposed to it. The amount of talent in the state. And, it's really, to me, I think I've said this before with Archie, and you can go back to the Tom Crean era. It's about identifying the right guys, right? Tom Crean not being able to land a guy like Kyle Guy who wins a national championship over Virginia. And I think at Trace Jackson Davis and Armand Franklin, they found two really good guys. Certainly Trace, his athleticism, his size, and he was a leading scorer in most of the games over the weekend. And Armand, there's a lot I like about him. He's not going to necessarily be that knockdown shooter that Indiana needs per se. But I like his grittiness. I like, the fact that he goes in and he rebounds, makes a lot of hustle plays. I think he'll be a really nice, first or second guard off the bench that can eventually develop into a 3 or 4 year guy that can be a really good player. And I think his shot will come over time, but I just don't see him as being necessarily a knockdown 3-point shooter right away.
Yeah, I've been saying it a lot. I've seen him play a lot here more recently, but over the last couple of years. But his game is really just speaking to me. He's just such a mature individual, and I think that's a big part of it. His game is mature. He's going to get better, of course, but his level of maturity and calmness and letting the game come to him, doesn't force things. He's going to be a special player for Indiana. You put him together with a guy like Rob Finney at guard, those guys are going to do well for Indiana. And that's the thing about Indiana, of recruiting these kinds of guys, these Kyle Guy types, Armand Franklin, Trace Jackson, the Indiana high schoolers that are born and bred here, that have grown up with that. And these are two perfect examples of that, of what this program has been lacking, I think. Yeah,
and, I like a guard that can rebound, and he goes in there and he puts his nose in there in traffic, and he'll go and he'll grab your rebound. He'll take a charge. He'll defend. He'll get up on you. He's a very good defender, I think, a well above average defender that I think is going to come in and be able to defend right away. And that kind of a guy, I think, the other skills will come and will develop over time. But, I think the intangibles that he possesses are very strong, and I think that'll get him on the court as a freshman at Indiana. Maybe not in the starting role right away, but he'll definitely be able to contribute at the Big Ten level, I believe.
Sounds like a winner, brother. I appreciate you. Kevin Brockway, the IU beat writer for CNHI Papers. Thank you so much. I'll probably see you out this weekend catching some basketball somewhere.
Of course. Looking forward to it, as always.
Absolutely. Kevin Brockway from CNHI. That's going to wrap it up for us today. Thanks a lot for joining us. Make sure to come back tomorrow, of course. Todd Leary and much more on tomorrow. But that'll wrap it up from the Golf Club at Eagle Point Studios. This is Jim Coyle, and I will see you on the radio.